Hello and welcome to the channel, guys. My name is Jason, and joining me through the miracle of the interwebs is a good friend of the channel. Actually, is Mr. Chris Priscott. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm not too bad. I did get your surname right there, didn't I? I'm terrible.
Prescott, yeah, Prescott, not Prescott. Yeah, Prescott, yeah, it's perfect.
Excellent stuff. Well, thank you very much for joining me. It's been a while since you've been in and around the Meeple Minded, but yeah,
Yeah, first year of UKGE. I think we first met over Zuuli, and yeah, it's been a while. I don't think we caught up last year, but maybe it's the fourth year of UKGE now. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, it's been
fourth
a
time
hell
I'm
of a long
visiting.
time. I
Yeah,
think
yep.
I've always seen you at UK Games Expo. We have a little bit of a chat, but obviously the setting is a bit it's a
Tricky.
bit busy.
Yep.
And obviously you're exhibiting there, so you always got things going on. You're trying to sell your games and stuff. So I don't like to get in the way of that. But
Yeah.
I think first year was Zuuli. Then you had Molehill Meadows.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 2 years of Zuuli, then Molehill Meadows last year,
That was it.
and a new game to demo this year.
You do have a new game, and I've got to admit, I'm very intrigued by this game because I know very, very little about it. You sent me some information about it the other day. I have had a little look, but I've got to admit, I'm really excited to try it. But do you want to talk a little bit about it? Are we allowed to talk about it?
Yeah. I mean, so I have actually showed it at AirCon this year for the first time. So that was a kind of prototype version, but is 95% done. It was kind of mostly a balance changes and stuff, which might change a little bit of art. But the game itself is fetching feathers. So you are trying to attract fancy flocks to seasonal sanctuaries, and along kind of the Zuuli lines of drafting.
Yep.
You're drafting these birds and also locations to place these birds at. You're trying to satisfy their requirements, their food requirements, but you are trying to score as many points as you can by kind of bonus-driven set collection things. So yeah, collecting birds or attracting birds to these locations and trying to score as many points as you can by comboing. The kind of unique twist I like to think for fetching feathers is these seasonal sanctuaries. So unlike Zuuli, where you have enclosures which just have, habitats and this kind of thing, these locations are based on seasons. So you can think of them as summer or winter, but in the game it's kind of blue and orange. And you play over 3 seasons, and each season the card rotates and the food available may change. And this is where the kind of puzzle comes in, is that let's say a vulture needs meat. Maybe there is meat available in orange season. When you rotate the card, maybe there's no longer meat available. So you're going to have to migrate your vulture to a different location. But, the vulture was maybe doing well with other birds there. So now you've broken that combo. Can you make that combo again in a different location? That's the kind of the gist of it. A bit Zuuli-esque, but with kind of a seasonal twist to it, with birds in rather fancy looking hats. Yeah.
Very, very nice. So you obviously have quite an affinity with animals, shall we say? Because every single one of your games have obviously been involving animals. Is there a particular reason behind that? Or?
It's a great question. Like I just generally a big animal fan. I actually am maybe more of a fan of like the insect world. But and I'd quite like to make an insect game at some point, but whenever I've approached this with people, they've always been a little like, oh, I'm not so sure I want to play a game with kind of, I don't know, bug illustrations. So for now, it's remained the cute side of animals. But yeah, it's happened with Zuuli, and I think I've just fallen into like, unfringed games are animal themed mostly. Maybe one in the future might not be, but for now I love it. So
You just want one day you just really upset the apple cart and just be coming out with a game about, I don't know, cars or something like that. And
Yeah.
what is this?
I mean, yeah, I really, for a while, I liked the idea of like, I'm a big, this comes from being a kid. Like, I mean, I don't believe in it as such, but I'm like a big horror and ghost fan as well. And obviously that doesn't really fit this kind of slightly more cutesy. I mean, it could, but like, I like the idea of maybe doing a more adult game based around that, but that might have to be, I don't know, unfringed Lates or unfringed something, like a slightly like offshoot of unfringed, that it doesn't like, because you mean Zuuli and a kind of hardcore horror game next to each other are probably not going to go down so well.
Especially if you get like a group of people that are used to your sort of playful games, and then just be like, oh, this is a new unfringed game, and they just buy it because it is what it is, and they'd be like, what? This
Mummy, why does this have lots of teeth and a scary mouth and might eat me? Yeah, maybe that's not such a smart thing. Yeah, I don't know. And for now it's animal games. Yeah.
Nice. So I did have one question. I can't remember if this is a question I've asked you before, so I apologise if it is.
That's all good.
But obviously, when you first come on the scene with Zuuli, you went down the self-publishing route.
Mm-hmm.
What was the actual motivation behind that, as opposed to maybe trying to get it into the right hands? I'll use the air quote there. The right hands to get it published by someone bigger, especially knowing the future of Zuuli, which then morphed into Moving Wild with Oink.
Yeah. A very good question. I think the honest answer, and probably the simple answer, is just inexperience. At the time, I was into the board game kind of world, not super deep, not as deep as I am now, but I would go to board game cafes and enjoy kind of learning about these new games. But I had zero idea. I couldn't have told you who a publisher was. I didn't even know really the concept of a publisher. How games are made. And so, it was from this kind of hobby project, I guess, to make Zuuli in the first place. Then realizing like, this actually has something to it. Then starting down the path of, how do I even make this? What are my options to make this? And when you do that, you see the classic two routes, which is pitch to a publisher or self-publish yourself. And there's pros and cons of each, right? I think at the time, I remember it was the creative control element. So like I'd done a lot of work on it and it worked. And the idea that someone could take that and, change it all, and you don't have necessarily, and maybe as a first-time designer, you don't have much say on how that happens. I think that put me off a little bit, and I was like, look, I've done all of this work. Let's see if I can do the whole thing myself. I think I set a goal actually to, if I could sell 50 copies, that was my aim. If I could sell 50, then I'd be happy. And I think the first Kickstarter got 100 or something, so I was doubly happy. Nice. And then progressed from there basically. But it was, inexperienced to a degree, and then also just having the time. It was during COVID, so I had some time spare when you couldn't go outside. And just learning about the whole process was interesting to me.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's good. Obviously, I've been a fan of Zuuli since the start. I don't believe I backed the original because you went down the crowdfunding route, didn't you?
Yep.
I didn't even know about it at that point, despite the fact that I was a crowdfunding addict at the time.
Yeah.
When I sort of met up with you, I think it was my first attendance to UK Games Expo as well. And I it might have been the first or the second, can't remember, but I remember playing the game, really, really enjoying it. And it was also the year that Arc Nova was first available in the UK. And I distinctly remember going home after day one of Expo and seeing, obviously, all the social media posts of, oh my God, this animal game is amazing, expecting it to be, Arc Nova, but actually everyone was talking about this tiny little card game called Zuuli. And I remember coming up to you the second morning and going, did you see what the hell was going on social media last night, and I just remember it taking off and snowballing.
Yeah, and that was like again at that time I wasn't even on. I kind of had I had my Instagram and maybe a Facebook page, but I wasn't part of these groups. And then when you told me, I think there were a few other people as well that come up and said, "Hey, I saw this on the Board Game Trading and Chat group," and I was like, "I don't even know what that is." And that was like, I think that was just a huge. That was so. Well, one, like an amazing feeling, right? That people were finding out about the game through word of mouth, and two, like it's just so helpful as a small publisher when you don't have an ad budget, you don't have another way to really get your game out there. The fact that people were coming and enjoying the game and spreading the word about it with no encouragement, right? Like we didn't even know it existed. It was amazing. And actually, I think that's a big part of like kind of not my focus is the wrong word, but being part of the community now is a really important thing for me to make sure that like, I'm interacting as much as possible. I'm a fairly active member on these groups now to find out like how people are enjoying the games or seeing what games they're enjoying and all of this stuff.
And I mean, you've actually touched on it quite well there. Like you've become quite a well-known face within the board game community, not just in the UK, but in different countries as well. You seem to be everywhere. You're appearing at different conventions. You're not even just on your own stands now. You're sort of obviously with Moving Wild. You've started doing meet and greets and stuff with Oink.
Yeah, I mean that's helped a lot, right? So like that when Oink picked it up, I mean that's been amazing, just amazing experience to work with them. Such a fantastic company, but to also go to Essen or go to Gen Con and do a sign in and be able to play my game with an American audience, something which to get Zuuli or Unfringed out to the US would cost an absolute fortune just to get stock shipped out there, I'm sure.
But to then 10 times worse now, I'd imagine.
Well, exactly. So to be able to do that as part of Oink as well, it's really great. And I love demoing it, and that's one of the things with Gen Con. It wasn't necessarily a sign-in session. I wanted to go and demo the game to an American audience, and kind of it's from an inquisitive side on my end, because I'd only really played with English players or British players, people in the UK, and to see whether the Americans or the American audience that come to Gen Con played the game any differently. And actually that was quite insightful as well, in that I think I found that an American audience, they tell you what they're feeling more quickly, or at least my experience with Gen Con, like if they're enjoying it, they tell you like very quickly, like, I really like this, like I'm really enjoying this game, which is something which maybe you don't get quite as much in the UK. And instead in the UK, maybe you have the players play, and then at the end of it, they're like, I really enjoyed that. And it's just small things like that, which I don't know. I'm not sure it helps as part of the publishing journey, but it's a nice thing to know about how different players play your game around the world. And stuff.
Yeah, and I guess as a publisher, you need to know how different audiences react to games and playtesting games, because you sort of might assume playtesting in the UK, if you're not getting any reaction whatsoever, that'd just be like, oh my god, they're having a bad time, and panicking and maybe making some decisions that you shouldn't be making because actually they were enjoying it, and you make a decision and then make them not enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas, like you say, I guess the American market's a bit easier on that one, where they'll be like, oh yeah, no, this is amazing, really early on.
Exactly. And I think that helps a lot for especially the playtesting side, to know even when a player, especially like when a player gets a certain thing. So like maybe with my games, I like to think they have a little bit of an I don't know, spiciness or an edge to them, which isn't immediately obvious. And knowing when a player, when they figure that out and it clicks with them, that I can actually do this now, that's really useful to know as well. Like, at what point in the game they figure that out? Like, is that too late? Have they given up before they get to that point, or is it too early that they don't understand it yet properly? Yeah, that kind of thing is really insightful as well.
Nice. So obviously you've circling back a little bit to Fetching Feathers. You said you've been demoing this at Aircon already this year. I'm guessing that's going to be your primary spotlight for UK Games Expo this year.
Yeah, exactly. So demoing it, trying to, the plan at the moment is to bring it to crowdfunding in rough September, October time.
Yeah.
I say crowdfunding rather than thrown in with one yet. I did Molehill Meadows on GameFound, and I did Zuuli on Kickstarter. I'm not sure yet which one I want to use. Okay. So I've not committed to either one yet, but it will be kind of, having people play it, learning from people playing it to make these last little bits of changes, and also hoping to gain some, newsletter followers so that I can let them know when the game is out and released and, ready to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, main focus will be on Fetching Feathers, and something that the Aircon people would be able to tell you. So one thing I did was, all of the birds in the game have these rather fancy hats. And so at Aircon, I brought a bunch of real fancy hats and had people, if they wanted to wear them. But yeah, a lot of people did, which was fantastic. And there's some amazing photos of all these people wearing these quite silly hats, but a lot of them match the birds in the game, so that you can choose which bird you like in the game and you can wear the hat. So we have top hats to match the hummingbird, and this fancy blue, I don't even know what it is, but it looks like the hat that the peacock is wearing. So yeah, that's a lot of fun, and they will all be back at UKGE for you to wear as well.
I shall look forward to seeing that. I'll definitely try and get some footage of that, because again, it'll always look very good. It's nice to have a gimmick like that as well for people to talk about. And also, if you see people walking around, generally, like one that springs to mind is obviously Flav when he goes around in his
in his fancy suit.
It always gets people talking. Obviously, when you start talking, it's then, it's this stand.
Yeah.
And then it's like, right, cool, I need to go and check out that stand.
Yeah. And I think it's the little things we can do as indie publishers. Like, again, we don't have the budget to create these huge stands and, I don't know, bring in a celebrity or something to advertise it or whatever it is. And so little things like that. Obviously, I think you need the game to also back it up. So hopefully people also respond to the game well. But little things which help you stand out in quite a, I don't know whether it's a crowded marketplace, but it's definitely there are a lot of talented people in the industry and a lot of talented designers and publishers. And so something which helps draw a bit of attention to you and to have people even just try out your game in the first place is it all helps.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Obviously, we'll talk more about actually what publishers do to prepare for Expo in a minute, and I'm sure we'll circle back to that as well. But I guess just before we do go on to talk about that, I just wanted to, really sort of finalize your sort of publishing journey, because we've touched on how it started. Obviously, with Zuuli, you went down the crowdfunding route, then went down the self-publishing route. We touched on it a little bit with it being picked up by Oink Games. How did that happen? Obviously, don't talk about contracts or anything like that, but what was the process there? Did they approach you? Did you approach them?
So they actually approached me. So it was UKGE. After the second one that I'd been to, so that was 2 years ago now. It really had in the first year, Zuuli had a lot of, it had a surprising popularity, like we said, from the Facebook posts and stuff. And then the second year, it'd been out for a while, and more people had heard of it, wanted to come and try it. And one of those people was a guy that worked on the Oink stand. And I've chatted to him since as well. And he played it, really enjoyed it. Went back and told the Oink team, hey, I've played this game. I think you should play it. It's really interesting. And I did notice, at this time I didn't know this, right? But I had noticed that there were a fair number of people in Oink t-shirts coming to the stand. And I was aware of Oink at this point, but I didn't know who the team were. I didn't know who worked for them. I thought they were maybe people that were helping with the demos and this kind of stuff. Turns out that actually someone that bought the game was Jun from Oink, who runs Oink Games.
Yep.
He really played it, really liked it, and then reached out to me a couple of weeks after the expo and asked if there was the Japanese license available, which I was like, yep. And then from there were other licenses available. So now we work together over that year. So they have like a development team in-house as well. So there were obviously a few things they needed to change. So a lot of that was, one, the box size. So nearly all Oink games come in the smaller box. So figuring out how to get it into the smaller box size. And then they wanted to make a few changes based around the enclosures being somewhat of like maybe too valuable a commodity. So they then made some changes there, and they would tell me the changes. I would mock it up on my side. I would play with Sophie. And kind of we had some back and forth of that. I would make some suggestions for like new upgrade cards and this stuff, and they would roll that in. Finished it off. They did handle all of the design through their two amazing artists, Ria and Ria, and produced Moving Wild, and it seems to be going really well. I think it's gone down very well in the US, and nice. It's going well in Europe and the UK, like it's through Hachette in the UK. So fantastic experience. I didn't even think it would be a thing. That's probably why I never even approached them to offer the game in the first place. So to have them reach out and accept it was really, really cool.
I mean, it's not like you've gone in lightly on that one. You know, Oink Games aren't exactly a small publisher. You know, worldwide distribution. It's fantastic. I was so happy when I saw it.
Yeah, me too. And I think like that they have such a nice reputation as well. Like they're big, but they also, I think they put so much care into like the games that they make, as they want to make them the small box. They want them to fit their kind of style that they've created. And it feels almost more like it has like almost like a brand aspect to it, right? Like Oinks, like they become slightly collectible items in some way. Very amazing. Like very, very happy to work with them. Maybe, hopefully, I can work with them again in the future, because I saw that Bruno Feduti, who also works with them on Whale to Look and his new game, they signed a second game from him called Snakes something, which I think is releasing this year. You never know. Maybe if I come up with another game, hopefully we can work together again at some point.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
I guess the final question with regards to the deal you have with Oink, how does it affect your sales of Zuuli under the Unfringed publisher brand or name?
Yeah, so originally the UK was would stay with me for Zuuli. But we managed to have a maybe slightly unusual situation where Zuuli and Moving Wild can coexist in the UK. But Zuuli is now like a UK only product, really. And Moving Wild is the kind of international version, but also available in the UK. But they're different enough. I think they actually, because they look so different, they have a different group that they appeal to. They seem to not be too competitive with each other, which is really good.
I'd be interested to maybe get some unknowing people to play both and actually see whether they think that they are the same game or not. Obviously, with the minor changes they've made and the art styles, and
as
you said, the visual appearance of it does look like a very different game.
Yeah, yeah, and it does play. So the strategy is surprisingly different. Like when me and Sophie play it, we can't use the same strategy anymore to beat each other. Like you have to mix it up because of the slight rule changes, and it's not a huge number, but there is a few. But yeah, I mean, I've definitely had a few people come, and you kind of get the hardcore Zuuli unfringed fans that will say, "I prefer Zuuli," but then an equal number of Oink fans that will say, I prefer Moving Wild. Yeah. And I think, that's perfect. There's a game for both of these audiences to enjoy, right? So, there were people who have a
definitely
preference.
One step closer to that fabled, you can't please everyone. But please two lots of people, that's more than most. So.
Yeah, just need to capture the miniature audience. So if I make a version with like little minis of all the animals, then maybe
don't do that.
Capture that.
I don't know if I can afford all
that. Yeah. Something that Arc Nova hasn't done, right? I don't think they have minis, do they, for the animals? So
no, I think they're doing like a version 3 of it soon, which has got like 3D tiles and stuff.
Oh yeah,
so they're starting to get there. But I'm like, no, just leave it at that.
Keep the minis out of it for now. Yeah, yeah.
Nice. So the main purpose of getting you on today was one, because I wanted to catch up before Expo, but also I wanted to get your input as a publisher, as an indie promoter, and what it's like to actually prepare for UK Games Expo, because we do a regular podcast every year. We do videos and stuff about preparing for Expo as attendees and even as content creators. But one thing I've never actually bothered to even care about is what's it actually like to prepare for UK Games Expo as one of the demonstrators, publishers, volunteers and all that kind of stuff. And I think it'd actually be quite an interesting thing, because I reckon you guys have a very different way of preparing to how, say, maybe I would prepare, or little Jimmy might prepare for his first Games Expo. So you've had a fair experience now of different cons. Obviously, we're focusing on UK Games Expo because that's what's coming up. But if you've noticed differences in all of them, it'd be interesting to talk about that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So are you prepared to share your knowledge of what you've learned?
I mean, I can give my experience. I'm not sure I can tell anyone how it should be done. Yeah. I can definitely teach from my lessons I've learned through the process. Yeah.
Like I said, I think you've had some highs and some lows, I'm guessing, over the years.
And things of course.
Along the line. So we'll go back to your very first Expo, because was UKGE your first convention that you actually exhibited at, or did you do one of the smaller ones?
No, so that was the first one, and that was, I can't actually remember.
It was it would have been the first one after the first lockdown, was it?
Yeah, quite possibly. Was it masks? I can't remember. Or maybe the one before, 20... Oh, I can't remember. So this is 25, 24, 23, 22. 22 was my first one. Okay. So that would have been just after, I think. Yeah. And I think I applied very late. So typically, I think the 2022 one, I'd heard of it. I didn't, again, inexperience, I didn't know even that these conventions went on. Even after doing the Kickstarter, I wasn't aware of any of this kind of stuff. And I think maybe someone mentioned it and I looked into it, and I just, sent a speculative email, because UKGE offer these starter stands for people that are exhibiting for the first time, which is a pretty heavily discounted rate. And you can get or at least when I did it, you could get a 2x2 or a 3x3 meter stand. And you wouldn't get to choose your location, but you would get put wherever there was space. And I applied very late, so I don't know whether I got a dropout position or I got, they just weren't full at the time. Because I applied quite late, it was then all of a bit of a rush to figure out, how do I even do this? What is this? What do I need? What do I need to plan, and all of this stuff? So that one was all a bit, and I should look back at photos really. I think it was, a table with a tablecloth, a roller banner, and some copies of Zuuli at the front of the stand. Not much to it, and I think over the years I've tried to, learn from how other exhibitors do it and try to make the stand a bit fancier, figure out what works best, kind of position-wise and this stuff. But yeah, definitely the first year was, looking at convention guides for how do I do this. And yeah, it was a demo table, and a table at the front to put my games on.
Nice.
To sell.
The barest bones of a display.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think now the process for me is quite different in terms of actually the opening time to get a stand at UKGE is around the October time. So I try and go to Essen in Germany each year if I can, just as as a visitor, but also to kind of pitch my games a little bit. And UKGE will have a nice stand there where actually it's a bit of a British haven in a large German convention, because they have tea and coffee on their stand, and you can grab it's a bit of I
attended Essen for the first time last year, and I collapsed onto their stand. I had bags and bags of games, and I literally collapsed, and she went, "You look like you need a cup of tea." I was like, "I do. I really do."
A little safe haven from all the craziness. So typically that is now where I will first say that I would like a stand for the next year. And actually that involves a few things, right? So at that point, even by October the year before, you have to have a rough idea of what am I going to show? What does that involve? How much space am I going to need? How many demo tables do I need? What size demo tables do I need? Because, some games take up more space, because you need to, ask for a certain dimension for your stand. So I started on a 3x3. The past 2 years, I think I was on a 3x4, maybe 3x4 meter. And then this year I'm on a 5x2, which is actually less space, but a different shape again. But you kind of have to know at that point going in, what you'd like. And I guess you also need to know what games you're having. So that's quite early in kind of October time. And especially UKGE now, they sell out very quickly. So you put your requests in, and then I can't remember exactly when it is. Maybe it's November time that they start to allocate the actual space. And you then get given your stand. And actually after that point, it's a little bit of dead time, really. I mean, you can focus on your other publishing stuff, but, you don't necessarily want to promote that you're going to UKGE in November or December, because
of course,
everyone's going to have forgotten about it by then. So actually, kind of, I guess as of recording, kind of early May kind of time, that's the time I start doing the kind of promotion bit. And for me, that's a lot of what games am I bringing? What promos are coming out? So I try to have this tradition I've done it every year so far, is to have a new Zuuli promo, which I will have this year.
Excellent.
I'll have my first Molehill Meadows promo. So stuff like this. So starting to talk about this kind of thing. But between that time, I mean, it's quite a big gap, really. You get your stand in October, November time, and then you wait till May to kind of, promote it, and then suddenly it's here at the end of May, and then the whole process starts again.
As I say, as soon as the start of the year, New Year happens, it just feels like the gap between New Year and Expo season is so quick, and it's probably even quicker for you because obviously you tend to do aircon in that time as well. Which I haven't actually attended yet. It's on the list of things that I really want to do. But I imagine that's really the start of convention season for most publishers.
And it creeps up on you, like you said, kind of Christmas gets done, and then you realize, oh, I actually don't have a roller banner for the new game, so I need to make a roller banner. That'll take a few weeks for delivery. And you have to design it as well, so you have to make sure it has what you want on it. So yeah, there's lots of little bits like that, and kind of your checklists that you kind of make for yourself. So like, what tables do I have? Okay, I don't know. They only offer 5-foot tables, and I've got tablecloths for 6-foot tables, and they're the elasticated ones, so they're not going to fit the 5-foot tables. Okay, can I change to a 6-foot table? Okay, now it doesn't fit my stand anymore. So there's a certain amount of like this, yeah, from the start of the year. I have this kind of like 3D background a little bit for my day job. So I kind of mock it up in these 3D applications, which really helps actually. Like I place the floor, I can have the exact table size, I can place my banners, and I can kind of move stuff about to have a rough idea of how it will look. And I definitely encourage new exhibitors to do that, to kind of, even not even in 3D, but you can just sketch it out on a bit of paper, get your measurements correct or to scale, and figure out how you want to set it up. Because one of the things that I didn't think about so much the first time is that you have this concept of like a corner stand and a end cap. So, or just in a row stand. So if your stand is in the middle of a row, you actually only have one side of your stand that is accessible by people. And so you can't put a table in the stand and expect people to sit both sides of it, because maybe they can't even get round to the other side because, you have another stand there. And so that's where it's a lesson learned. We managed to figure out for the first one, and I think we had like a diagonal table or something, so we managed to fit people in. But yeah, it's something to do with that. Figure out what your stand is. Do you need to spend a bit extra to get a corner stand? Because you have to pay a little bit more to get a corner stand. But you now have two sides, so now you can get people into the demo tables a bit easier, and it helps the space mean a bit more. So even though it could be the same amount of space, you now have that open side, and it helps them. So yeah, that kind of stuff happens. And yeah, definitely drawing that down helps you figure that out.
And I'm guessing it's one of those, goes without saying, you kind of want to plan as much of this well in advance so that you've got time to react to things that change.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and there are deadlines, right, to get the table orders in. So you do have to commit to your furniture relatively. You could bring it yourself, but I think most people aren't necessarily equipped to, rent a van and bring their own furniture, this kind of thing, especially if you can just rent it. So you do have to commit relatively early on that, because you want to get the roller banners even change in size, right? So you could get like a really wide roller banner that you get up, or the skinny ones, and maybe that will affect which one you need. So yeah, doing that as early as possible is useful, and then you can always, the actual, the other details of the stand, like, I don't know, what's actually going to be on the front table, maybe you can leave to a bit later, but
I did
figure out on the day.
I can't remember what company it was, or what publisher, or whether it was a publisher or whether it was a terrain stand or whatever. But I remember one stand from a couple of years ago now, where they'd obviously put a lot of effort into what their stand needed to look like. But one of the and I spoke to them, and they sort of said, "Yeah, we thought about everything bar one thing, and that was where we are going to stand."
Oh, yeah.
So they've done all this stuff and filled out the space, and then had nowhere to stand. So they were stood at the front of their stand, taking up the space that obviously your customers ideally is where you want them.
Yeah. And so I think like some people do it different ways, right? So for me, I'm again kind of along the community kind of side. Like, I really like to get people into the stand and have them sit down and play like a whole demo.
Yeah.
And that could take 45 minutes or so, especially after a rules teach. But I don't know. For me, I think some of my games don't reveal their that kind of twist until a bit later in. So you do need a bit more time. You can't necessarily sell it in 3 minutes, like a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
And I just like the idea. Like, I want people to experience the whole thing and decide from a whole demo whether they want to take a copy home with them. But then some other people, and that works for me, but some other people will have like kind of tables around the outside, and then they will have like a few people that will pitch the game. So like Molehill games do this a bit. So Lee from Molehill, they'll have like tables around the outside, and each of their games on a different table with a different demoer or kind of picture for each game, and that works really well for them. So their games can be pitched more quickly, and so you can give a quick example on the table in front and show a turn, and then they can either decide, I'll grab one, or they'll move on to the next one, and you can kind of play a few of their games at once. So you're not committing as much time, and when you have a game like that can be pitched more quickly, then that also works really well. So I think that's another thing, is to figure out, can you pitch your game in a short amount of time? And if you can, take advantage of that if you can. If not, have them play a full demo. Or if you just want to sit like me and teach a game and play with the players, like also have them sit down and play a full game.
I know some of the publishers with, like, especially with the bigger, long slog games, they tend to have like a very strict script that they'll do, but the actual game will be tampered with, shall we say, where they know what's going to happen at what time, so that they make you see everything that you need to see, and not have to play an entire game, which I think is probably a really good thing to do. But I would imagine that's something you only want to do if your game is an hour plus, because not a lot of people will want to surrender that amount of time at something like a convention. I know I certainly wouldn't.
Yeah, and it definitely makes sense for those games because, like you said, if a game is going to take 2 hours, especially if you've stacked the table with 4 people that have never played it before, you can't really spend that 2 hours, because you'd only fit in 5 games or so.
Exactly.
And not even that. It's I think that's really helpful. And maybe there is actually like something I could do for my games, which is like, set up a turn. But it's one of those things, like, whilst I can teach most of mine relatively quickly, so they can get the teach and then they can go into it. And actually some people might have decided after a few rounds that, I'm happy, I like it. Although usually if they like it, they want to play the full game, and then which is also totally fine. And I try and get big enough tables so that you can fit enough people to do that. So I think this year I have two 6-person tables, so it's like 12. So if you fit 12 on the stand, so it's a lot of time. We only do it, Sophie and I think you met Sophie last time as well, and so one of us will stay on the front and one of us will demo. So it is intense. That is another, I guess, not warning, but something to be aware of, is like, it's a full-on day, and you are, by the end of the first day, your voice is already going, and throat sweets are very helpful, and having water on stands, like big bottles of water, as much water as you can have, so you don't have to leave the stand to take a break and stuff.
Do you find that that's something that people should be aware of? Like, maybe don't be expecting to be able to leave the stand all that often. Like, obviously, if you need the toilet, that's something you got to do. But
I mean, I think so. Like, I think for the first year we were okay, and then the second year, when it became more popular, I mean, you had people at the front wanting to buy a game or wanting to talk to you for most of the day, and then you have someone demoing for most of the day. So actually, you don't really get the opportunity to switch out. There's something which I almost tried this year, was to get some demoers in as well. I think for now, 2 of us is just about okay. And actually, my mum comes up. She's a huge Molehill Meadows fan, so she will come up this year on the Saturday and Sunday and help out with some teaching of that, because she's actually very good at teaching that. So she'll help out with that. But for the other stuff, it's the thing is, like, you love it as much as, like, you'll get in at 9 and the show finishes at 6. The time just absolutely flies by, and you get to 6 and everyone leaves, and you realize you haven't eaten all day and you're exhausted, but you love it. Like, watching people play your games and seeing them enjoy, like, what you've created is, like, unlike any other feeling, really. Like, it's a real special and such a highlight of the year to take part in these events for that.
So when the final bell goes, and everyone's left the convention hall, do
Yeah.
you then go, oh, it's time for me to game, or are you more of the case of that was a day, I'm going to go home and sleep?
First, well, actually, so the first year, the intention was to go home and sleep, but it was also the year that I met a bunch of new indie publishers and stuff, and so one of the nights was a 3 a.m. night at the Moxie at the next door. So that was maybe not smart because that made the Sunday quite difficult. Playing jumbo Tetris, jumbo Jenga with like the Zatu team and stuff. So it's a mix, right? Like I try to do is like stay at least for a little bit and walk around the open gaming halls because the feeling in there is always great and bump into people. And actually last year I played a couple of games of Adam from Punchboard. So I was just actually wandering through and I saw him sat at a table and he picked up two of the games from Bright Eyes, like the sumo game and some game about dinosaurs and sake. And we sat down and spent an hour playing those games. So nice. I don't think I could do anything which required too much like cognitive power, to be honest, because your brain is kind of fried a little bit. But still, I want to play something like, easy party game or something like this.
Yeah, so something to help you unwind after.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess it's one of those things you don't want it to just be full-time work when you're there. I'm guessing you're there as a gamer yourself. You kind of want to enjoy it as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't also it feels like work to a certain extent, but not really. It doesn't feel like you enjoy it, and then actually afterwards it's really nice to like the indie publisher like network as well in the UK is also lovely. So to hang out with them and just grab a drink at Weatherspoons or something for UKGE or and then occasionally maybe people get a game out then. So for example, Aircon this year, we finished like a podcast and then, people kind of hung out and then we played That's Not a Hat for about 45 minutes with a huge group of like 14 of us, which is also amazing, right? Because it just doesn't take that much thinking and people have had a few drinks and you can kind of wind down a little bit. So, yeah,
that is such a good game. I am utterly terrible at it, but
yeah. Me too. Yeah.
So I guess a couple more questions with regards to being a publisher at a convention. We talked a little bit earlier about the gimmicks that you have with this year being the hats. I know previously with Zuuli you did like a competition type deal and stuff like that. Do you think that that's something that people or publishers that are maybe exhibiting for the first time should really be thinking about as like a way of trying to get people into the stand? And how would you attract someone into the stand?
So it's a tricky one because what you don't want is it to come across as too gimmicky, I don't think. Again, it's kind of that balance, right? If you have the game there, if the game stands by itself, then the gimmick helps. Otherwise the gimmick kind of drives them towards something that doesn't work. And I'm not sure whether that happens, but I think more what's helped for me is not necessarily the gimmicks, but I think just being yourself and being passionate about your game. Like I think when you're passionate about your game and people can see that, I think that is slightly infectious, right? Like, and they also become passionate about your game, and whether that's through a gimmick or whether that's just you teaching the game and enjoying watching them play it. I think that is maybe the most important thing, and this is why I've always kind of and this probably isn't fair in a lot of cases, but if I was to like hire external help to help do the demos, I've gone to Essen and whatnot, and demos on the whole are fantastic, like really great at demoing games. But my concern is if you got someone that wasn't very good, that like as an indie publisher, it's kind of like you want to infuse people with the same like passion that you have, and if they have a bad demo, the negative result of that could be quite harmful, just because nothing to do with the game, just because of how they were taught it. So,
of course, yeah.
you know, maybe it's a slight control thing. It's probably a slight control issue as well from my side, not wanting to like give up that control, because I know like when I go to Essen, 95% of the demos are amazing. So the chance that you get a good one is probably quite high. But yeah. And so at some point, you know, if the company keeps growing and I get more and more games, at some point, having some extra help would be useful. For now, I love, you know, doing it, getting in and teaching the games and doing all of this stuff. But yeah, I think, back to the question, I think it's more, again, it can help if you're also just passionate about your game. And I think most indie publishers are. I think that's the thing we have. That's the benefit we have over a lot of these larger publishers. And that's not to say that larger publishers don't have the passion for it, but some maybe don't anymore, and they maybe treat it more like a business. And maybe that passion doesn't come through as well. And I think as an indie publisher, you really, because you've done everything, right? Yeah. Most of the time you've done all the design, you've done the publishing, you've done the artwork, you can really infuse that in people. And I think people respond very well to that.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. I would. I think I'd have to agree with everything you said there, to be honest. Yeah. You know, and I think speaking as a customer, one thing that I'm not a huge fan of, but I don't really know how that works on the publisher side, is I won't say pressure selling, because that's the wrong terminology, but you know, like when you're walking down a high street and you get that person that comes up to you in the street, like, "Hi, can I just borrow you for a minute?"
Yeah.
You know, and you see some stands doing that.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of like, you're actually putting me off coming to your stand, as opposed to, you know, attracting me to it. Is that something that you would agree with, or is there a reason that publishers might want to do that?
So we tried that in the first year, right? Because I think it's just one of these classic things that, I don't know, people are told, or people watch The Apprentice or shows like The Apprentice, and they think that is how you make sales.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe it does work. I have no background in professional sales, and maybe it does work. But I think more people are like you and like me that respond really badly to that kind of thing. And it instantly puts me off, I know, if someone tries to do that to me in a store. And so, yeah, I mean, we even had somebody came to the stand. Again, most people at UKGE, absolutely lovely. Some of the best people you will meet.
Yeah.
Some people, less so. And some, like, we did have one guy, like try to convince us to be like, you need to sell to me harder, the game. And I'm like, no, I don't want to have to sell to you harder. No. Like I'd be more than happy to have you sit down and play the game. And if you enjoy it, like if you'd like to buy a coffee as well, fantastic. But like, I'm not gonna, you know, put on the Alan Sugar front and do the hardcore sales pitch kind of thing. So I think, I would say that I wouldn't advise that unless, I don't know, maybe the people that do that are really good, are just, you know, very charismatic, and it works because they're so charismatic and stuff. And I think if you try and do it when you're not charismatic, people can tell, and, you know, it's gonna be just be yourself. I think you're passionate. If as an indie publisher, you're gonna be passionate about it, and be yourself, and show that passion without trying to pretend to be somebody else.
Creating a nice atmosphere at the stand is going to be attractive to most people. So
I think you notice, like, when people walk past and they see, like, and this is less to do with exhibiting, but like Zuuli had one key problem, you might say, which was that the look of the game doesn't quite match the complexity of the game. And it's not a complex game, but the look is maybe too much on the younger side. And so we do remember, like in the first year especially, we'd have people walk past and we would hear them maybe say something like, "Oh, it's a kid's game." And so I think at that point it was, if someone for those people, you don't want to obviously go grab them and explain to them that it's not a kid's game. But when people show a bit of interest, it's trying to get across what the game is if you have a slight, like, unbalanced game like Zuuli in terms of the look and feel of the game, which didn't matter in the second year once like people had played Zuuli and heard about Zuuli and this stuff. And I think that's more of a lesson learned, that if you're in the industry more, you design the game to give the impression of what it's like just from the look. And then that helps, and maybe someone comes to your stand and they show some interest. And then I think my typical go-to is like, when I see that they're interested, I might say like, would you like to hear a bit more about the game, or would you like to have a demo? And some people will go no, and they walk away and totally fine. And some people, want to hear a little bit more, or they want to sit down and So soft interest without, hammering them with apprentice style sales techniques. Yeah,
there ain't nobody wanting Alan Sugar at on a board game stand. That way.
Well, saying that, the Mead guys, for example, and I know they're not in the board game world, but the Mead guys who were at UKGE last year, they were very loud and very successful. But again, maybe it's just the thing. Maybe if you have a good product, you can be loud, and it goes very well. But I think maybe it fits their product better. I'm not sure I could stand at the front of the Zuuli stand and start shouting about animals and enclosures, all this kind of stuff. I'm not sure.
You kind of expect a stand full of air quotes Viking people. Be a bit loud. And exactly. I can't lie. We talked about this a little bit before we started recording. I'm a huge fan of their mead, so had some earlier, in fact, which was very
good. I think they got those highest sales figures or something last year. So that were their highest weekend sales figures or something from it.
I'm so glad that they're back this year, and it's Nidhogger Mead is who we're talking about. Really delicious. Happy they're coming back this year, but it's going to cost me a lot. So I'll be stocking up.
It's big bottles. It takes up a lot of board game space in your bag.
It does. So this is why small games like Zuuli and Moving Wild are perfect. So
there you go. The perfect accompaniment to Mead. Maybe we'll collaborate first.
I think they've actually got their own little card game as well, from what I've seen from their website. I don't know if they'll be selling that this year, but it looks somewhat interesting.
Smart. Yeah.
But I mean, final question, I guess, for you would be, what do you recommend in the way of like I guess point of sale systems? Like do you operate as a cash only type deal, or do you feel like taking card is a necessity at this point?
So we definitely take a lot more card payments than cash payments, but people do still seem to like paying with cash. So I use Zettel. I think there's a few out there, and I think I actually met the guys from, is it Jabberwocky Toasties?
I recognise that, yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember. Maybe I got the names completely wrong. But when you have, I don't know why I asked the question, but I asked them after I was waiting for my food. I was like, "How are you finding the Zettel system?" And they were like, "Yep, Zettel is like, we've used all of them now, SumUp and Zettel and everything, and Zettel is the best one." So I was like, "Okay, I picked 12." But we've never had any problem with it. Like it's. I always recommend taking a battery to charge it in case you're super busy. And try and test it beforehand and stuff, and make sure you have a phone that you can tether the internet from and stuff. I don't think you need it. I think it's Bluetooth or Wi-Fi connection or something, but like the internet can be a bit intermittent.
Yes.
We've never had too many problems with it, and UKG is pretty good, but now that actually UKG is in a different hall, or all the halls have been moved up one, and we're no longer in the same hall as we've always been in. So who knows this year? So I mean, to be honest, I don't know how you get around that. If your phone just doesn't have signal, I guess you'd have to take cash.
Yeah.
So be prepared to take cash. But I mean, there's a cash machine I know in the NEC, right? So which is usually
it won't have any money in it.
It won't have any money, or it's not working usually after the first day. But I if you can support both, use both, and have a backup option if you can. which ultimately, I guess, cash is the easiest backup option to take cash.
I guess the last thing you want to do is lose a potential sale if a card machine's not working and that's your only form.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a few of these, like the phones ones are quite good now that you don't even need the card machine. You can like tap on the back of the phone.
Yeah.
And so as long as you have a phone that has internet, I guess you can take the sale, which is good. And I think actually Zettel allows you to have, so if you do have other people on the stand taking sales, you can give them like a sales profile, so they can all have a phone, and they can't do anything like add new items or change the price, but they can take the sale. So if you have a few people, I would recommend that as well.
Yeah, 100%. It's an easy download as well. I can actually speak for Zettel because I use it for my my game club.
Perfect.
So it's a really good till system. And it catalogs everything for you, and you get all the reports from it as well. So it's actually a really good system to use.
And it's nice that you can do like the small one I have does like email receipts. So I will always ask, would you like a receipt? And, one in 30 people might want one, but you can actually send them one if they put in their email and this stuff. Which is,
I mean, if you really wanted to, I think they have a paid thing where you can print receipts as well, but it's quite expensive. They also take PayPal through Zettel as well, so they're the ones I always recommend when people talk to me.
Yeah, and it's always worked for me. So touch wood this year. Now I've said that, this will be the year it dies on me. But,
and you did mention one thing there, and it reminded me. From what I understand, you have to notify UK Games Expo if you want power on the stand. Is that correct?
Yeah. So one thing I'd say, like if you are considering exhibiting, UKGE especially, and actually Aircon as well, they have a really good guide to exhibiting. So you can download an exhibitor pack from UKGE website, and it'll have all of the information you could possibly want to know. And one of those things is like for add-ons like power, you do need to pay extra. And there are bits, for example, if you have custom structures over 2 meters tall, you will need to arrange an appointment with like a safety inspector thing. I think that UKG have that person, but you have to just make sure that they come to your stand to sign off your stand, and little bits like that. And all of and you can make your stand as fancy as you want, right? So there are services which will put up the partitions for you, and they'll do flooring, and you can hire a TV, or you could hire like a cabinet to have your games. You can have all of that stuff if you want. You'll pay a very pretty penny for it. And I don't know, I think for indie publishers, it's probably better to focus on something else to spend your money on. But it is available. And a lot of that stuff is usually provided not by UKG itself, but by the company that they recommend. So that's usually all listed in the exhibitor pack kind of thing.
Nice. Well, I'm very acutely aware that I'm taking up quite a lot of your time, much more than we intended to, in fact. But we're both those type of people that once we get talking, we tend to lose track of time.
Keep talking.
So I apologise in advance for that.
That's all good. I had one question for you actually on the exhibitor side, on the convention side of things.
Okay.
From a visitor. I don't want to say customer because you might not buy anything, but from a visitor perspective, what is something that stands out for you that is good that an exhibitor does, and maybe something that is bad, something that you don't? I mean, we've touched on it briefly already, but yeah.
I mean, for sure, the bad one has to be the whole pressure selling. It's one of the main reasons I don't personally go into the likes of Games Workshop anymore, because that's their whole business model in their stores. Is kind of, as soon as you're walking in the door, hi, what are you buying today? I tend to be a bit sort of I recluse when that happens. But as for positives, like again, going back to what we touched on, a friendly vibe coming from a stand is always something that will attract me, and certain gimmicks, like you said, as long as they're not over the top. One of the stands that I remember every single year is the Stuff by Bez stand,
yeah,
because everyone's in red, everyone's
yeah,
having a good time, everyone's having a
yeah,
joke around. There's
yeah,
loads of people,
yeah.
and it draws you to the stand. You
Mm-hmm.
know, there may not be the games that you're interested in, but there's a visual presence, and it's like, yeah, I'm going to come to that stand.
Yeah.
You know, has the stand got a gimmick? As I mentioned with you, I remember from the first year you had that Zuuli competition thing. As it was
Yeah.
something simple, but I
Yeah.
remember it.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, can I say the same about maybe, I don't know, the Spiel or Pegasus Spiel stand from the same year?
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't remember anything, because it was literally some games on a table for you to buy.
Yeah.
You know, there was nothing there that sort of screamed, come to this stand, you know. So that for me has to be the positive thing, is that there needs to be something that, you know, where's the hook? It's like a game, isn't it? A game needs a good hook,
Mm-hmm.
and I think selling games at a stand also needs that same hook. So yeah, I would say that. I would
Yeah.
say
Cool.
I didn't go to Aircon. I haven't seen the whole hat thing, but I
Yeah.
know walking around a crowded hall, if I saw loads of people wearing really weird hats,
Yeah.
I'm going to be looking, well, what's going on over there?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's what it is. I think
Yeah.
a small hook,
Yeah.
and the negative would be, don't try and
Hard
pressure
sell.
sell me into the game. You know, I might come and look, but you're already fighting an uphill battle if you do that.
Yeah. 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 And I think that I just think that's it. Maybe it's the slightly more introverted nature of board gamers potentially that we just don't like that. But that's not for us. Like,
Yeah,
let me look and make up my mind, and if
yeah,
I would like to play, I'll let you know, kind of thing.
exactly.
Um,
And I will say there is a couple of times where I've been talking to some of the stands, and they've been pitching a game to me, and say it's like a party game. You know,
mhm,
I'm pretty upfront. I guess that's my inner American at this point. Just going, oh no,
mhm,
it's not for me.
yeah,
Don't waste your time. And
mhm,
they're usually pretty good at being
yeah,
like, oh, cool, yeah, we can see it's not for you.
yeah,
We'll back off. We'll
yeah.
spend our time on someone it should be.
Yeah, yeah,
Spent on, so, yeah.
and this is where it's actually quite nice. If like, I mean, I think with the business as well. Well, not the business, with my designs, I'm trying to, not go too wide, but have a little bit of option for everybody. So like Molehill Meadows is much more chill, kind of cozy game where you don't have much interaction. Zuuli a bit more. Maybe a party game in the future, which will be a bit more interactive.
Ooh, interesting.
But yeah, it's that kind of thing. And I think with your point with the like, having the gimmick kind of thing, it's one thing that Essen doesn't really do well. I don't think is that Essen. I mean, it clearly does very well as a convention,
Of course, yeah.
but it is just a big shopping mall.
It is.
Essen, like
100%.
you go, and people don't really mind what the stands look like necessarily because it's got the hottest game there.
Yeah.
It's the only place you can get it, or it's the place you can get it first. Whereas I do think like at UKGE and Aircon and stuff, you don't get that so much. So there does have to be a little bit more
Yeah, it's
work
kind
on
of
the
like,
exhibitor side.
yeah, because we don't get that many releases
Mm-hmm.
per se. Whereas something like you said with Essen, it's the place to go if you want the brand new games, because that's where they all release.
Yeah.
But yeah, they don't need to put the effort in, because a lot of people will just go buy, go, then
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
gone.
And it's
You know?
gone by 10 o'clock or 5 past 10 or whatever it is when they
Exactly.
open.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas, yeah, I think with something like UK Games Expo, it is a case of, yeah, it's more about making you want the game here, so that
Mm-hmm.
when we go to Essen, you buy it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I can totally see that. But yeah, you may have sprinkled a bit of curiosity just there.
Mm-hmm.
But one of my questions was going to be, post UK Games Expo, what is next for you? Do you have any other little
Next
bits of
plans.
spice that you might want to?
Sprinkle. So nothing. So since there's nothing like, so Fetch and Feathers will be my main focus at least until kind of September time. But I have been I've been part of more design groups now and meetups and prototyping groups and this kind of stuff. And you don't like to go along to them with nothing to show necessarily because I mean I like demoing other people's games, but it's always useful to get feedback on some new ideas and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I kind of have two rough games in the mix. One kind of an abstract, I don't even know what you'd call it, to be honest, a quick abstract, I guess, card game. But it's not dueling because there's no fighting. It's very abstract, but it's nice and crunchy.
Okay.
Which will maybe, I don't know, possibly have an appearance at Aircon next year, but let's see. And then the other one is a party game based around a restaurant. So that's as much as I'll say about it for now. Right. And it's still being tested and this kind of stuff, and it'll probably turn into some animal themed game, I'm sure. But yeah, something which I've been working on for a little while. I really want to make something a little bit more party focused. That the rule I can teach within 30 seconds to a minute. But that's been quite a design challenge, because to find that something which you can teach in that shorter time, which has that hook that actually grips most people, or more of a mass market audience, is really difficult. That's where That's Not a Hat is just, when I play games like that, I'm like, I wish I'd designed a game like that. It's so clever. It's so it's just really, you can teach it in 10 seconds. And it has enough to keep almost anyone interested in it for an amount of time. So basically trying to work with that. I think the last testing session I did with that game was good. So fingers crossed, watch this space. But I have limited time at the moment, so it's hard to juggle both at the same time. But maybe next year it could see some demo appearances.
Nice. I think that's a decent amount of spice sprinkled there.
Yeah.
But no, thank you very much for telling us that. So I guess one of the best things that we can do for you is obviously to promote you just a little bit. So I want to give you the floor to sell yourself, sell your games.
The hard sell. I go apprentice.
Do the hard sell. Tell people where they can find you, what you've got coming up, what you've got at UK Games Expo, and all of that lovely jazz. The floor is yours, sir.
Awesome. So best place to stay up to date is actually probably Instagram or Facebook. So I'm at Unfringed Things on those platforms, and also on Blue Sky and Twitter, and most socials are at Unfringed Things. But Instagram is usually one that I'm most active on. And to stay up to date with Fetch and Feathers, Instagram again, but also a newsletter on the website. So unfringed.co/Fetch and Feathers will take you to the page for that, where you can sign up to the newsletter. I don't spam anything. I don't think I've even sent one email this year to the newsletter. So, I will only ever use it when the game is, come to crowdfunding or available for sale. So you don't have to worry about spam or this kind of stuff. And maybe related, I need to figure it out, but I might try and offer something special for people that sign up to that, like a promo card or something. But I need to figure that out. And come see me at UK Games Expo if you're there. So hall 3, stand 313. So 3-313. And come try on some hats and play some Fetch and Feathers. And we'll also have Molehill Meadows and Zuuli there if you want to try out those games as well. And plus the promos. So I'll be releasing the promos in the upcoming weeks. So you'll get to see and add to your collection of Zuuli and Molehill Meadow promos. I'm
looking forward to seeing those, because I still play both of those games quite regularly.
Nice.
We really do enjoy them.
Awesome.
Obviously, if I will try my best to, I'm sure if I remember, I will put all of the links that you've just mentioned in the description of the podcast or the video, whichever one you happen to be watching / listening to. And if I remember, I'll try and do some QR codes, but I'm terrible at remembering to do stuff like that.
It's
so
good.
I apologize. But thank you very much for joining me today. It has been a pleasure. It's been great catching up with you as well. And
thank you very much for having me.
So much of your time.
No worries. No, it's like we said at the beginning, right? Get chatting and time flies by. So
It does.
yeah, no, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me on.
Fantastic. I look forward to seeing you at UK Games Expo. I'm looking forward to trying Fetching Feathers.
Perfect.
I'm looking forward to giving you more of my money for more promos.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm happy to make myself look stupid in hats as well. So.
Perfect. I'm not above making myself stupid in hats. I saw a video from Aircon recently where I'm dressed in some ridiculous duck bucket hat. So, you know, at the time I don't see myself. I'm not looking at mirrors and I'm wearing all of these silly hats doing promos to camera and stuff. So yeah, I'm not above it.
Nice,
yeah.
Nice. Well, we'll undoubtedly get some pictures of you at UK Games Expo.
Yeah, perfect.
Footage on the stand as well. So hopefully people will get to see that on the channel as well.
Awesome.
So yeah, with that being said, thank you very much for listening, watching what we've been talking about today. I hope it's been insightful. If it has, you know, there's a comment section. Do please use it. Thank you, Chris, for your insights into the subject at hand. And we will see you and all of you at UK Games Expo.